And the boys are back for the Thursday night edition of ELF Live. You noticed perhaps on Monday I was not here with Matt, and that is because I was suspended due to my very, very poor and embarrassing takes from the previous week. And the league just couldn't have that. We couldn't put that on the show. So Matt had to do it with Jamal, but we are back here now. Matt, what's going on, man?
I mean, rightfully so. I think after the after the show, I got off with a stiff warning because I didn't have the best of predictions myself. Some mixed. So that's kind of. I think Stanley kind of saved me from being on a 1-game ban.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. So you got that. So you didn't get the suspension, but here I'm back fresh off the suspension. Slight problem though, guys, and maybe you can hear a little bit of my voice. I'm very, very sick right now, so I'm grinding through it. Matt's going to really, really help me out here today, but when we're going to have a little bit of a shorter show because I might just fall asleep in the middle of this. This is my Michael Jordan flu game right now, okay? So we're going to get through this, even though my voice is all raspy and my head is ringing and I might have a little nausea here, but we're going to talk ELF football. Matt, how's that sound?
There we go. You're going to just be spacing out.
So there you go. So if you hear me saying stupid stuff or slurring my words or anything like that, that's why I'm grinding through it. But enough about me and this boo-hoo sob story. Here to talk ELF football. We're heading into week 11, the final month of the regular season. We are now in August, and we are going to start off this show with a little bit of a top 5 power ranking. So Matt and I are going to give our top 5 teams, our power rankings in our opinion. Guys in the chats, you guys feel free to chime in and even write out your whole power rankings. People in the chat, Marcus, what's up? Mark is here, and Bison and Vikings at Championship Game 24. I like that username. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the chat. So, Matt, why don't we get on into it? Max, you pulled up that beautiful graphic for us. We're going to walk through our power rankings, top 5 after week 11. Matt, you want to start us off?
Gorgeous. I think I'm going to go for the Madrid Bravos at 5. Bit of a, they had a bit of a bounce back against Cologne. Granted, Cologne aren't doing too good, but their secondary picked off 4 passes, congested the middle of the field real nice. They got Dwayne Obi. Molina had a great game behind Obi that gives them a little bit more options going forward on offense. They got a couple of the Dragons players that have moved over. We said about their depth, like in the start of the season and kind of all the way through, kind of all season, we've said about their depth. I think they got better. And granted, they might not be able to hang with the Fires and Musketeers of the league just yet. But for me, they're definitely still in that top 5 race.
Okay, the Madrid Bravos, a team that I have notoriously been sort of bashing, if you will. Do they make it into my top 5? Well, number 5 for me is actually the Raiders T-Roll. Giving a little love to Austria, a team that I don't think we give enough credit to. It's because they play, it's kind of strangely, they play up to their competition and they play down to their competition. So you look at some of the games that they've played. For example, the most recent game against Helvetic, they only won by 2 touchdowns. They weren't looking great, but when they played the Stuttgart Surge, for example, they really played up to that competition. And this is a team that really has the ability to win big games. That you look especially at that game against the Surge. And when I talk to Surge players, they really say that, yeah, the Raiders T-Roll are close to one of these top 5 teams right here, if not number 5. And that is why I've got to give them that spot at top 5. What do you think, Matt? I know. Tell me your thoughts.
I'm not mad. They've scored more points than Madrid, and they've scored more points than people like Paris as well. So I think that is something that's definitely, they're outside my top 5 personally, because at number 4, I have the Paris Musketeers, and I think they're quite a lot better than the Raiders, although they have a similar thing. They've scored a little bit more. I think that Paris is a better team, more French talent. Me and you talked off camera about Tegadan. I'm going to release a show about that later today, but he is the leading French receiver. He's the leading team receiver. He has more yards than people like Yannick Meyer. He's done very well. Edwards is kind of on borderline MVP for him. Their running game hasn't kicked in, but their defense is still sublime. Granted, against Ryan Fire, they kind of got picked apart due to injuries. But I think they go all over the Raiders. I think if that's a matchup we see potentially in the playoffs, I still think that the Paris Musketeers come out quite comfortably on top of that one.
That would be a matchup that I would actually
Would be good.
really love to see. I would really love to see that. And I don't know which version of the Raiders will we get. I think that would kind of depend on how, or that's would be the dependent on the outcome there. The outcome would be dependent on that. Which version of the Raiders show up? Are they going to play up to the opponents? But I'm with you right here on this one, Matt. I'm also Paris at number 4. A team with so much talent. I think the big disappointment and the reason they're not higher right now, obviously, the most recent loss against the Rhine Fire wasn't great. They did play them really well earlier in the season, just losing by 5 and really having the ability to actually win that game would have been awesome for the Paris Musketeers organization. Unfortunately, now they've dropped both to the Rhine Fire. There's just some inconsistencies for me. Like I said, probably in terms of talent, top 2 or 3, but right now they're at 4 for me. Because I don't know what to think when I see them jump out up ahead 35-0 on Berlin and then let them back in the second half. A little bit of inconsistency there. I mean, Matt, what are your thoughts on that? Something like that.
I think they've lacked a bit of a signature win. You know, they could have had that against Berlin, 35 up against one of the best scoring offenses in the league and a really solid defense of Spillum, Kitchens, Myron, all these great players. And then they let it get close. So they couldn't have that signature win. They lost both against Rhine. They beat Galaxy just about. Like they've kind of lacked that big we are here, we are to contending kind of game. I think that's the big thing for Musketeers at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's really it. And if this second matchup against the Rhine Fire was a little bit closer and they played them a little bit better, now that the Rhine Fire are in 2023 Rhine Fire form, and you look at that tape from last week, they're looking good. They're looking deadly on that. And it would have been nice to see Paris keep that more competitive. But yeah, right now we both got them at number 4. Matt, number 3, who you got?
I got Vienna at number 3, and I know their fan base are very vocal. everyone in Vienna thinks it should be number 1, which I think is fair. But I have been a guy that's a little bit on the fence to them. They've got a great run game, a great offensive line, some of the best receivers in the league. You know, Torre has been a revelation in this league. Horton's leading the league in yards. Schultz has been great. Ben Holmes has been good, but is also playing lesser competition. I'm pretty sure they played one team was a positive record in this season so far, which was the Raiders. I'm just still not convinced. Kind of lack with Paris as well, with the same kind of lack of signature win. They've shown some holes. I'm not sure if they kind of look a little bit fraudulent. Maybe they're an amazing team, and I love their defense. And Talitz is probably going to get defensive rookie of the year. But and also Weapon X, and I liked how good Nichols was, although he's injured. But still, I love the team. I'm just still not ready to put them above my top 2.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on a lot of that, what you said. I am also with the Vienna Vikings at number 3. Coach Kalaitka is going to be upset. I talked to him earlier this year before in the preseason. He talked about how the Austrian teams just kind of get overlooked. There's sort of this Austrian bias. And yeah, the Vienna Vikings are sitting at 10-0, but just like you said, that Eastern Conference, they're not playing these tough teams. It's not the Western Conference. They don't have these weekly battles. And even with a little bit lesser competition, still been some games that are too close for me, in my opinion, that I would like to have seen them, and they should have been dominating more. I mean, the Helvetic game comes to mind. I know there's a lot of injuries there. But also, for example, they play Wrocław. And both of those, granted, the first time they played, they didn't really have a quarterback, but the rest of the roster was intact. But the second time, they had Ben Holmes back, and it was still a reasonably close game. And we've seen Wrocław kind of be falling apart all year. So some of these games have just not been as dominant as I was like to see from the Vienna Vikings. Obviously, we got to give them their props for being 10-0. But I think that 10-0 just puts them at number 3 right now. And I'm with you on that, Matt. Let's see. Are we gonna have the exact same top 2? Let's see.
I doubt it. Knowing our chosen kind of allegiances for number
Okay.
2, I've gone for the Stuttgart Surge. I think we can kind of see this one coming with who we mess with. But the Surge are an amazing team, top to bottom. Great defensive backs. I just made the video about Fettig being in the Defensive Player of the Year competition. Wilson's been one of the best mid-season signings. They've got people like Chad who are outstanding. That defensive line, Malumba's amazing. Their offense, they've got Riley. Their special team scored like 4 touchdowns in the last game, and that was a big thing for me. And that's the reason why they're not number one, because against Barcelona, they had issues. The receivers struggled a little bit of separation. Riley didn't have his best game. He threw an interception against Barcelona. Granted, it turned into a safety, so it kind of got in points anyway.
Points.
But they didn't look amazing against the Barcelona Dragons. And I know they won by like a 71-7. It was an absolute beating. But there were still parts of that. And when your quarterback that's on MVP form gets under 110 yards and 1-1 on such and touchdown, it's something that was lesser than the Ryan Fire, who I'm thinking we can kind of predict are going to be number one, that have just beaten a Musketeers team very easily, who we both have at number 4.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta agree with everything that you said there. I don't know, I've kind of noticed this pattern, and I asked Coach Newman about it, that the surge, especially when they're on these away trips, and this kind of goes for every team, but I feel like I've noticed it, especially with the surge, is starting a little bit slow. Like we saw the interception there at the beginning of the game, and if you turned on that game for the first couple minutes, they're kind of trading possessions. And Barcelona, with all the woes that they've had, I mean, this is damn near a brand new team, all new guys on here. So yeah, you would have liked to see a little bit more dominance, especially individual performances, I'd say, from these players. That's, we're talking about being in the MVP race. So I have some more to say about the surge, but for my number 2, I'm going with the Rhine Fire. And I mean, I think a lot of people would disagree with this. I know you're going to, and we're going to talk about that in a second, Matt. I mean, I can't say enough good stuff about the Rhine Fire right now. And the reason that they're not at number 1 is still just that loss. And obviously you can tell I'll have the surge at number 1. And the reason is the Rhine Fire still did drop a game. And I think it's important for, even when your team is not playing well, things are not going well, you're having hardships, adversity, can't click, which the Rhine Fire were doing in their loss. I'd like to see those teams still find a way to win those games, these elite teams. I do kind of look at the Stuttgart Surge playing the Raiders T-Roll down in Innsbruck, and that was a little bit of that kind of feeling for the Surge. Not great for them, kind of a little bit gritty, messy, but still finding a way to win. So that's just that little blemish for the Rhine Fire. That's the only thing that's holding them back for me, but they're peaking right at the right time. Jadrian looks incredible. Their offense looks just top form, and Glenn didn't even have to go off crazy this past week, but Jadrian just 287 yards, just zipping the ball all around. Kelvin McKnight's showing what we thought he was. Like, he finally hitting his stride right there, and that's a good Paris team too that they really dominated. But the only reason that I've got them at 2 is that little blemish of how do you come away when there is still adversity. What are your thoughts on that, man?
I think it's a really good point. I think that I really liked the surge point with the Raiders.
Yeah,
great example, because the Raiders moving up the field very well in that game, and then the surge kind of shot them off. I like what you say about winners win. I like that. And it's a very valid point. It's one that's hard to argue, but number 1, I'm still going to have the Rhine Fire, of course. And I talked to Jadrian a little bit this week. He said how good McKnight is. He thinks he's one of the best receivers in the league, and it's kind of hard to disagree with him after that staggering performance. He's up over 80% when targeted, by the way.
Wow.
You've got Haaland, who's back fully healthy. And for me, I think Haaland is the best European receiver in the league right now. This is open for discussion, but he's probably my number 1. Ryan Fire potentially could have the first ever we've seen. Obviously, the league's young, but we could have 2 MVPs in the same backfield, which is incredible thought to have. Glenn's a record breaker. Probably, well, he is the best running back we've ever seen in the ELF. I'm going to die on that hill. He leads the league in rushing. He has, obviously, the touchdown record this year. He's been sublime. The offensive line is an incredible unit. The defense has really stepped up in the last couple of weeks. And they made Paris look like a bottom half team. They really did. They looked incredible. They picked them apart, start to finish. Literally, first play the Paris get picked. And it was just continue on from there. It was a dominant performance, and for me, they're the number 1.
Yeah, I mean, just really tough to argue with any of that, and you see also kind of just the veteran aspect of that team with guys like Glenn and guys like Jadrian, when So they're having a little bit of adversity in the first half of the season. Just keeping the head down, keep grinding, and know that things are going to click. And that's also coming from their highly experienced coaches, Tom Sula, Andrew Weidinger. I mean, that just so much good going on there. So that's that's a very fair number one right there. Obviously, I've got the Surge at number one. M. Bison says, now if with Surge at number one, shocker. But it really does come back to the point of when teams find a way to win when the game is not great, when there's still adversity. Because let's look, this last game, the Rhine Fire, things kind of went perfectly for them against Paris. It was one of these just smooth operations all day in every aspect of the game. But that's not going to be every week. Teams are going to have struggles. And that's why I think I'm harping so much on that point of still finding a way to win when things aren't perfect. And the Surge do that. They've got such a great team chemistry. I think that plays into it. And also we are harping, like we both are, but we're harping on like a 71-7 victory, which is because we have such high expectations for the team.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've got Surge right here at number one. We're looking at a possible rematch depending on how things shake out at 2023.
Yeah, I mean, they're like kind of not guaranteed, but you would think very likely for an undefeated season once again, which is an incredible accomplishment. At 8-0, they've got the next few games, they've got Milan again, Raiders, which they're probably the favorites in, Barcelona and the Mercenaries. So you would favor them in all those matchups. So undefeated season is absolutely within reason and would get them a very good placing in a seeding.
Yeah. So we're going to see here this last month of the regular season how playoff seedings shake out. And there it is, taking a look at our beautiful playoff graphic. Still the same as it has been. And again, for people who are wondering, why are the Surge not in the top two and getting the bye week? It is because it's based on total wins, and they've had more byes already in the regular season. So come the end of the regular season, all games played will be even, and then it will all shake out fairly. That is the explanation for that. I mean, what do you think of this if the playoff picture shakes out like this? And also, Matt, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I'm going to touch on this in Conspiracy Corner. What are your thoughts on this playoff bracket right here?
I mean, it is just there's so many math I've said about every time we talked about the playoff bracket. Just the infinite amount of matchups that I would pay to watch is just limitless. I think the idea of Paris versus, or even Madrid, any of those two against Vienna would be the real challenge that Vienna have had all season. The Surge gets third matchup with the Raiders. If somehow the Raiders do pull out another win against them, it would be quite a surprise, but they could do it. We could have championship rematch before the championship game. We could see a Western Conference all final. Like, it's a lot of really interesting things just to think about in this playoff picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we've got the Surge and the Raiders one more time in the regular season. And imagine if they do play each other in playoffs, as this indicates, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a year. So if that ends up happening, that's kind of in favor of the Raiders. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it's just playing a team 3 times in a year. It's so difficult for teams to defeat the same team 3 times. So that would be in favor of them. And guys, keeping an eye on the championship game weekend. You can get your tickets to the game now and also to the honor show, which I will be hosting again. I'll be dressed up in a nice fancy suit, pretty sweaty on stage. You can come there and be a part of this awesome evening and basically the whole championship game weekend. So get your tickets for all that now. We'd love to see you guys there. Matt, time now for our hot takes / conspiracy corner. There we go. Look at that. The Ninja wood fire oven, which delivers us our steamy, delicious hot takes. Matt, you want to start us off on your hot takes this week?
I'm going to go, right, this is going to kind of evolve into the pick'ems as well, but Hamburg are about to get shut out. And I think it's going to be a very dominant defensive performance. We've seen Fulford throw interceptions in his ELF career, 2 in the last game, granted, both of them at the end. But it's in Madrid. They're hot. They've just picked off Weed 4 times. I think I favor them to get it. They've got a severely underrated defense. I'm not going to go into the numbers too much, but they do have a very good defense. They can intercept the ball. They got former Defensive Player of the Year like nominees. They've got young Spanish talent like Arrea, who's just lighting this league on fire. They've got veterans like Vera who can pick the ball off. They've got a good D-line where they did.
Oh, hold on, Matt. I hear you, but I think you're popped out real quick. Guys, chat. Can you see Matt right now? Does he disappear? Hold on. He'll be back in a minute. That's a good hot take. Poor Hamburg. All right, there you go. He's back. And you know what? I got caught too many times looking stupid with any sort of Madrid bashing. I'm gonna just 100% agree with this, man. I'm anything positive about Madrid or Madrid dominating. I'm in with it. Marcus, hot take. Matt knows too much. He's a ghostwriter for the game scripts. Matt has been hired for his storytelling for the ELF script. He's one of the lead writers actually for the 2024 season. I hope you guys are enjoying the storylines.
It's been quite a mental one, to be fair.
It's pretty crazy, but I think he's got a twist ending in store for us here. So stay tuned on that. All right. I like that. Hammer will be shut out. My hot take number 1, Matthew McKay, MVP of the week as Frankfurt dominate Cologne. And we'll do our pick'ems in a little bit. That spoils it a little bit. All right. Just hear me out. This is a rematch. Cologne versus Frankfurt. I actually broadcast that game. I got to watch it very in detail, very close. That was Matthew McKay's first game in Europe, and he went crazy in that game. 335 passing yards, another nearly 100 on the ground. I mean, like I said, it's his first game in Europe. And I think that he's kind of learned some of his lessons. Don't throw the ball to Bijan Harris or any receiver that's being covered by Bijan Harris. He's absolutely deadly with his legs. And I think that Cologne is just going to, they really let me down last week as I went on my conspiracy that they were going to beat Madrid. Never have I been more wrong. Terrible. Cologne without Gerald Alman is not the same team, and not just offensively, but defensively as well. They just, I don't know. There's something he must have this leadership that he brings because they were not the same squad. Matthew McKay is going to go for about 300 through the air, another 100 on the ground. And Frankfurt is I think Frankfurt's going to have a nice second half of the season, actually, maybe surprise some people with some spoiler wins. Not that this beating Cologne will be a spoiler, but I don't know. I think that we might have a little something there. What do you think of that, Matt?
They might be a playoff spoiler for people like Madrid and Paris in terms of seedings if they mess up one of their years.
Exactly.
I like McKay. I liked McKay since he came in. He had some up and down performances, but I think overall he's been pretty good. And I like the pick up. I really do. If he doesn't throw to Dijon, that's still half a field he can go to because Dijon's just a monster. So just avoid him, whatever you do. They do still have a very good offense. They've got a really good receiver core, and I think that's a solid. What about touchdown? You said 300 plus, 100
300 plus, 2 or 3 touchdowns through the air, and another 1 or 2 on the ground. I mean, It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy game.
It sounds like if I was a script writer, then am I right?
I saw you emailed me the script. You don't remember? I saw the script for this game, so I can look smart. All right, Matt, give us your second
let down last week as well. So we both got let down on some of our takes. One of my worst ones was the quarterbacks going over 400 yards. I've learned my lesson. Don't want to talk about quarterbacks anymore, but I do want to talk about receivers, and 5 of which are going to go over 100 yards. Okay. There's a lot of matchups that I think teams are favored on. We'll get into it in the pick'ems. We got Horn playing, Torre playing, who we'll also get to in fantasy. We got Serge versus Milan with Geyer and Meyer, and Stewart seem to have picked up some more steam. We've got McKay potentially going over 300 yards. It's got to be distributed somewhere, where that's Castle, Kea, whoever they go to, Lenhart. You got Paris versus Berlin, 2 explosive offenses. You got Ravens playing a bad Prague team. I think there are opportunities, maybe even for 10 100-yard receivers. It's going to be a lot.
I like that. I like that one a lot there. And I don't think you're going to get let down like you were last week. We had these players did not follow our orders last week, but I like that. And we love to see some beautiful passing offense football. It's always fun and exciting for the fans. And actually, I'm with you on this because my second hot take is Louis Geyer will have 200 plus receiving against Milano this weekend. Milano has a pretty solid run defense. For the first time that these two teams played, Stuttgart Surge really kind of struggled to run the ball. I mean, Zachary Blair right in there in the middle, and Surge had a few really stalled drives because they're trying to run the ball. They're going to have to take to the air because the Milano Siemens pass defense is not very good. It's bottom 5 in the league. Daryl Stewart is now back. He's going to take a lot of attention away from the kind of premier players in that defensive backfield. I got my eye on Sam Westfall, their American DB. He'll probably be following around Stewart. And that's going to leave a lot of open space and mismatches for Lewis Geyer. I think that Riley Geyer connection is going to go crazy down there in Italy, and that Lewis Geyer is going to have 200+ yards receiving. The only thing that would hold this back would be getting pulled at halftime. What do you think? Am I crazy?
No, actually, I'm going to talk about Geyer in a minute for a different section, but actually not with yards. So I'll keep you on that intrigue line. But yeah, I think it's a very good pickup. I think it makes sense. Like you said, Lando have a very good passing defense, and Riley's on fire, and I'm sure he wants to kind of prove people wrong with that last Dragon matchup and light teams up in the air. I'm sure he's got a little bit of fire in his belly about that one.
There we go. Those are our hot takes from the Ninja Wood Fire Oven. Now, before we move on to the next segment, we're going to just kind of, Matt, just hear me out on Conspiracy Corner, okay? And now not only am I just going down a rabbit hole here, but also my mind is kind of melted because I'm so sick. And so I'm just going to talk a bunch of nonsense here. I think, hear me out, there could be a world where playoffs has 3 teams from the Central Conference. Okay, hear me out. 3 teams from the Central Conference. Right now, we got our eyes. On the Western Conference that we would have Rhein Fire, obviously, Paris, and Madrid. But that team, Frankfurt, that we just touched on. Now, let's first look at the other 2 teams who are kind of competing for a playoff spot in the Central, aside from the Surge. Munich and Tirol. Munich is going to finish 8-4 or 9-3, depending on how that last game against Tirol goes. Tirol, if they win, they're going to finish 8-4, most likely. Thinking that, okay, they lose to the Surge, but then they win their other 2 games. All right. So let's say for a second that both of these teams end the regular season at 8-4. Are you with me so far, Matt?
I'm with you so far. Yeah.
Marcus, you said sorry, but the pick 'em last time we learned a hard lesson. Maxie, can you delete that? All right. So now let's take a look at the Western Conference. And we just talked about Frankfurt. Maybe they get their stuff together in this last month of the season. They're obviously out of playoff contention, but they still got a lot of talent on offense. And they've played some of these teams tight. Paris, for example, maybe they lose to Frankfurt. Maybe they lose to Madrid as well. Realistically, Berlin also played them quite close. All 3 of those games potentially could be losses. But let's say that they lose just 2. That would drop them to 8-4. Which is a very realistic possibility here. Then we have kind of like a 3-way tie of teams at 8-4. Then it's going to come down all to head-to-head matchups, point differentials there, and then we get really deep into the woods. But I think that there is a world, if Frankfurt is a little bit of a spoiler here, where the Western Conference could kind of shoot themselves in the foot, kind of cannibalize their 3rd playoff spot. Matt, talk to me. What do you think?
I actually think that you might be cooking with something there. And what's interesting, you touched on it very slightly, but I think it's quite a big point, is the point scored. They don't play each other head-to-head, so it's just going to go to points scored. And Raiders and Ravens both have more points scored than the Musketeers and the Bravos. So that is something.
Am I cooking? Am I cooking, as the kids say?
A little bit. I ain't gonna lie, just a little bit. I can see it. I don't see it like as a likelihood, but it's a very real possibility. Like you said, only one win between them. It's not guaranteed. This is a playoff picture that can move around quite a lot. I'm kind of on board with it. I think if it happens, I think you'll get a lot of clips out of this live show. I think that's a solid call.
Yeah, there we go. So there's an outside chance that could happen, depending on if some of these teams, if some of these outcomes of these games don't go 100% as we would expect. And I think that's very possible, man. We've seen that in this league, that kind of, you don't know you don't know every week, and we can really be surprised. And a team like Frankfurt has a lot of history. They still have a lot of talent. People thought at the beginning of this year that they'd be a playoff contender, and so I think there's a possibility that they mess some things up there. There's an outside chance. So that's it. That's my conspiracy corner. Thank you guys for indulging my conspiracy, but it'd be very interesting if the playoff ends with 3 in the Central Conference. Okay. All right. We got to move on. Moving on now, Matt.
Here we go.
After my conspiracy rants,
it was a good
Marcus, one. Here we go. Oh, what did M. Bison say? If Madrid finishes 8-4 along with Munich, it'd be messed up if the Ravens got in over the Bravos because Munich's wins aren't as impressive. Yeah, that's a great point. But it's the playoff picture doesn't take into account impressive wins per se. It takes into account
care about your feelings.
Yeah,
stats don't care about your feelings.
So when they dominate a team like Prague and they put up 60 points this weekend, perhaps that's going to really help them out in my fantasy of the playoff picture here. All right, Matt, let's take a look here at the week 11 pick'ems. Those are our slate of games this week, guys. Marcus, yeah, you're allowed to make picks here. Here we go. Come on in. All right, let's take a look. Matt, first one, surprise me.
I'm not gonna surprise you. I'm gonna go with the Vikings. However, this was a close one last time. I think we might see it that they got QB changes, receiver changes, everything's kind of changed. A very different matchup to how it was the first time round. I think Vienna probably sorted their stuff out. I think Mercenaries, they're a very good team, don't get me wrong. They can seriously put up some points. Their defense is pretty good for what considering the stats. I think it'll be quite a comfortable one. I think it'll be maybe about 20 plus rather than a wider margin than people might think, but I'm still going to go Vikings.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is kind of why the Vikings, like we said, are for both of us at number 3 right now. I mean, they've played this exact game before. They've played the Mercenaries. And with as talented as they are, we would expect them to win by about 40, 50 points. And if they don't do that this weekend, I'm going to be unimpressed. I'm going Vikings, of course, as probably everyone, as 98% of people do. But I want to see an absolutely dominant performance from the Vikings. Otherwise, they're stuck at number 3 for power rankings, from my opinion. Next one, Matt. Western Conference, which we just talked about, a bunch of conspiracies that could shake out in there. What do you got on this one?
Interestingly, even though we're on week 11, these teams haven't played each other. So it's the first time they're going to be able to get tape on each other, which is very weird considering the conferences.
Right.
I am going to go with the Bravos, obviously. I mean, I picked them to shut out. It'll be kind of weird for them to lose this game. I think it's going to be comfortable for them. But it is, I think, a storyline that Hamburg could play the upset card. And I could be really wrong and you could be really right.
Man, I learned my lesson with picking upsets of teams that you previously described as lower mids. You know, your Hamburg Sea Devils, your Cologne Centurions. Last week, I picked our Cologne Centurions to upset the Bravos. Will I make the same mistake again? No, I will not. I will not. I learned my lesson. I'm going with the Bravos. I do think that the Sea Devils could make it interesting, but you know, I got bit by the Bravos, and I got to put a little respect on them right now. I still think that, you know what? No, I'll bite my tongue. We'll go with the Bravos. How's that?
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
There we go. Next one, the game that I am headed down to tomorrow, down to Milano, Italy. Stuttgart Surge versus the Milano Seamen. Matt, you got a surprise for me here?
Should be a blowout. I'm going to talk about Guy in a second. So I think he's going to go for a big one. You talked about Guy earlier. You think he's going to go for a big one. I think Riley's in for a big game. I think the running game last time took off. They're averaging, like, I don't know what their averages were precisely, but it seemed like every time they were touching the ball, they were going for first downs. So I think, and that special team is incredible. So I think they're going to be a quite a dominant one. I mean, last time they played, it was pretty easy. I can see that kind of happening again, especially with the DBs. I think low-key, this isn't one of my fantasy picks, but low-key, with Salem's erratic play style, we could see a lot of turnover, especially with Wilson, who's got multitude of them already this year, and Fettig, who is on a Defensive Player of the Year campaign.
Yeah. both of those DBs, both of those dudes, actually two former teammates of mine. Great guys, great players. They might throw up some pretty lovely stats on defense. I would love to make it interesting and pick an upset, but I'm going to be with you on this one. And with 100% of people around the world, 100% of people are picking the Stuttgart Surge. In the chat, Jaime J-May Laja says, it's not funny if Nick doesn't hate the Bravos. Don't worry. I still do hate the Bravos, but I'm just not picking them to lose this week. I'll pick them to lose again, probably to Frankfurt, actually. Don't get me started on that. I go down another rabbit hole. All right. Next one, Matt. Another Central Conference. Interesting. Galaxy and the Cologne Centurions. What are your thoughts here?
I think if Almin was healthy, it might be a different story because we saw how much he ran with them. You put a ball in Weed's hands. I've been a fan of Weed. I think he's a fun quarterback, but fun doesn't necessarily always mean the best numbers. Through 4 picks, which granted is still fun to watch, but it wasn't a very good performance for them in the last game. Galaxy have kind of leveled up a little bit every week. They've been a little bit better. They closed out that last game really, really well, especially defensively. I think we're in for quite a convincing one. I agree with you with McKay's take. I think that he could be an MVP of the week contender, if not winner. I think he's going to go for a big one. Cologne look like they're in a bit of a free fall.
Yeah, man, I'm sad because Cologne was kind of a team that I was really rooting for here in the middle of the season. The loss of Gerald Amel, and who knows when he'll be back, but it's a different team without him, because the previous time that these two teams played, he was a major factor, and obviously the Centurions went on to win by 7 or 8 points. It was a really, really good game, and it was at the Galaxy's home stadium, a very hostile place to play, the Purple Hell, as they call it. But yeah, the Galaxy, they're a team that still have a lot to play for in terms of pride, because I think a lot of us would categorize them as maybe the most disappointing team this year, at least in my opinion. One of the top 1 or 2 most disappointing results so far this year. And I think they still got a lot of pride to play for and kind of finish out this second half of the season strong. And I think that they're going to continue to kind of improve week by week. Matthew McKay goes on to be the MVP, and they dominate the Cologne Centurions. There it is.
Indeed. I think we go. I was going to say we both went for that one, but I just want to make sure that I'm not sure if I actually said who I thought was going to win.
Yeah.
All these matchups, I didn't actually say who I thought was going to win.
Yeah. Are we going to have any differences here, Matt? How about on this one? This is an interesting rematch.
It is. It's an interesting rematch, but I don't think it's going to be as close as it was last time. I think Paris have learned their lesson. I think Paris are going to win quite comfortably. Berlin have been dealing with a lot of injuries. They've just had a bye week, so perhaps they are back up to full health. But Robin was injured, one of the best Europeans. Bias was injured, one of the best breakouts. Paris, I think, got a little bit rocked. They got rocked against the Fire. I think they're going to want to shut some people up, get back on the road, play Berlin, and make a bit of a statement victory and kind of try and defy us. As we said, they didn't have one. I think they're going to try and get one.
Yeah. Both of these teams coming off pretty ugly losses. Really just not great. Got a big blowouts for both of them. But I agree. I mean, we saw the Musketeers just run it up on the Berlin Thunder in the first half, the first time they played. And then they let them sneak back in. I don't know really what it was. Musketeers kind of seemed to just take the foot off the gas, what have you. But I agree 100% that they're going to be itching to shut some people up, and they're probably stinging for a little bit of revenge after that smack that they took from the Rhine Fire last week. And they want to show, hey, we're still here, a playoff team. It's a top 5 team, and I think they're going to have kind of a statement win. Paris Musketeer, we're together on them all, Matt. We're together on them all. Unless you go crazy on this last one.
I mean, if first quarter Prague in the last game turn up, then maybe. I do quite like Perkins, and I think the receivers create a good amount of separation. But I'm still going to go Munich. Like, it should be quite easily decided. I came in with it in a preseason about Prague, being quite excited about them, and they did do all right at some points, but they've not been a great team. Munich are only getting better. They've just lost Evans Euroball, which is huge. Then that could affect the playoff rankings absolutely. but I think they should be able to get this one done quite comfortably as well.
Yeah. I gotta go with 96% of the people as well. Like I said, the Munich Ravens in this stretch of games that are leading up to them playing the Raiders T-roll, which is gonna have massive playoff implications. So really, none of these games for the Munich Ravens can be kind of coasting games. I mean, they've got to be really focused on improving every single week. So I think they'll win pretty handedly in their rematch against Prague. All right, guys, you are now in for a weekly treat, the most valuable European fantasy football advice that is available on this planet. Okay. Matt Bressington is going to give you some fantasy football advice. Get yourself in the top 10, have some pride, lock in your teams by Friday at midnight. Matt, take it away. Teach these people how to win fantasy football.
All right. So I usually go with a bit of theme. Last week was friendship and vibes. This week is record breaker and vibes. And my first one, I always give a bit of a dual choice. We got for Noah Torre, or you can go for Spiller. Now, both of these guys are in the conversation for two of the best players we've seen come into the league this year. Milan Spiller is currently sitting at 4th in the league, which is incredible for a rookie, which is absolutely insane. Torre is at 7th. Now, these two are going to be going at it. They both want to be the first European to ever get 1,000 yards. No Europeans ever got 1,000 yards. Milan Spiller is absolutely on course for it. Currently got 811. I think both of those are going to be it's a bit of a Magic versus Bird story. I think both of them may be trying to go up against each other and see who wins. I don't want to fabricate beef. Obviously, I'm sure they talk off the field or whatever, but both of those are going to be right up there for those end of season awards, I'm sure. Incredible receivers, excellent addition to the league, and they're both of their games incredibly good amount. My second one, I've been teasing it. Geyer, he's going to go for a couple of touchdowns this game. He has 8 so far this season. His career high in 2022 was 9. Also, the receiving record for touchdowns for a European is Harlan Kofi and Knudel, who got 12 each. I think the next couple of weeks, he's going to be trying to break that record. If you don't think players are aware of records they're trying to break, you're absolutely wrong. He's only 4 away from that. We've seen how good he is in the red zone this week. He's got Milan. I think he's going to be torching him. This will be a big step in trying to get towards the all-time European single-season touchdown record. It's a long record, but it's one of them that I think he can go for. He also has a very easy schedule, so this will be a good momentum builder. I think also a little bit of a given. If you go for the Bravos defense, after I've said they're going to get locked up, I think they should probably be all right. They've had a good amount of points for every week. They cause turnovers, as we've seen in the last game. I think this could be a big one for them. Last one is Kerib Jerinin is going to go over 1,000 yards in this game. He has quite an easy game, and I think he is one of my best running backs in Europe. He's currently set at 913 with 10 touchdowns. I think he's going to go over 1,000 yards in this one, which I said was going to happen in the preseason. So I'm very happy to be vindicated on that one. He's averaging 5 a carry. He's against a pretty easy team. I can only really see him doing well. And he's been the backbone of Vienna. I want people to get twisted and say that Ben VP is a good player for sure, but it's this run game that softens up the defense, allows them to open up holes, and Kerry's going to go for a big one this weekend.
Whew. I hope you guys were paying attention to that right there. That's jam-packed with years of expertise and analysis right there to help you guys out with your fantasy football choices. That was great, man. I love that. I like your picks too, man. I'm high on Lewis Geyer this week. Marcus says in the chat, everybody loves Geyer. He's really a fan favorite of this league, a guy that's been here since the start and been really successful. And that's what we got this week, man. Matt, man, we did it. I survived. Guys in the chat, the flu game, we're able to do it. I hope that my raspy, annoying voice did not bother you guys too much. But there's no better cure for a sickness than talking about ELF football or watching ELF football. And that's what we did here today, Matt.
Absolutely. Pleasure as always. As always.
Pleasure as always, brother. Everybody enjoy watching the games this weekend. Make sure you set your fantasy teams by tomorrow at midnight, and we will see you back here on Monday to see if Matt and I's hot takes were right or wrong. See you later, everybody.
That's all right.